Good evening. Excuse me.
Speak more.
Yes. Shavua Tov, good evening. Welcome to our annual Melave Malka. Thank you very, very much for all the support you're giving us to EMUNAH. Here in Bayit VeGan, we're only a small group, and we rely on the help of everyone. First of all, thank you very, very much to all the ladies of the committee who really worked extremely hard to make a success of this evening. Also, I would like to thank all the sponsors who help so that we shouldn't have any expenses. It's my pleasure to call upon Rabbi Itzkowitz to give us a Dvar Torah. Everybody who lives in Bayit VeGan knows Rabbi Itzkowitz, so he doesn't need introducing. Please.
You know everybody knows me.
I don't think that works. I think it is.
Okay, it's working.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here always. Little Horace reminds me of the speaker last year. Remember he had a bad cold, Dr. Greenspan. So it took a year for me to catch it, I guess. It's a shame for another year, at least I shouldn't have one. Shabbat Tov to everybody. I'm especially looking forward to the program, Shabbat Shira, of music. You know, there's a rabbi in Yerushalayim who puts out a Shabbos sheet, Rabbi Yosef Berger. And he goes around lecturing a lot. And he says that the best way to get people to be aroused out of their sleep after a while when he talks, is to sing a song. That's what he does. So I'm not going to do that. We just started. I hope everybody's still awake. But you, tonight for sure won't fall asleep because the whole program, I understand, is going to be about Shirah. But I'd like to ask a question. That's how I usually, more an educator than a rabbi sometimes, keep people awake by asking questions and seeing if you can come up with the answers. So EMUNAH. EMUNAH, of course, means faith, belief. And I'd like to ask you if you know where it appears in the parsha. So, first answer. There are several. The idea of EMUNAH, the word EMUNAH, Moshe Rabbeinu at the end, right? When he puts his hands up, Amalek, very good. Quickly, other answers, okay? Oh, before Az Yashir, which I had to learn today. We went away on a Shabbaton. There was nobody to learn that, but it wasn't arranged, so I had to learn the Shirah. It was very, very nice to do. But Vayaminu b'Hashem, they believed in Hashem and in Moshe his servant. Okay, any more? Not with the word emunah, but the act of emunah. Going through Yam Suf, Nachshon, right? First one, believing that the water, Hashem tells you Vayisau to go. So they went. Anything else? That was actually based on Vayasu Chen, right? They did what Hashem said. In fact, Mechilta says, Lagid Shvachan Shel Yisrael, that what? Sheshamu lekol Moshe, that they listened to Moshe and they did go on. Okay? Any other acts of emunah, or the root of the word emunah? Perhaps is in another big act that they had. Man. Man, the Torah says mahu. They didn't know what it was. They said manu. What is it? But really, the word man could be also related to the word amen. Man, emunah. Okay? So you see that you are in this week's parsha, right? Okay, now we have another midrash that says that Sha'alu Talmidei Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they asked their Rebbe, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, said, why didn't the man come down, let's say, once a year, so that they wouldn't have to schlep out of their tents every day, to gather the man, right? Who knows one of at least 4 answers that I can think of to that question? There's a famous one that he gave, but anybody have answers to that question? Why didn't Hashem provide a whole bunch of man at one time so that he wouldn't have to go out every day? Yeah.
Because he wants us to thank him regularly, because we expect him to wait for us to expect to wait for him to do us.
Very good. You see, EMUNAH has also scholars, not just to thank perhaps, but even to rely on him, right? To have EMUNAH. that tomorrow the man will come down, we'll have what to eat besides today.
And on the Friday will be a double portion, that reminds me the next day is going to be Shabbos.
Okay, when you have double on Friday, it reminds you, of course, the Shabbos, the Mishnah. Okay? Any other reasons you can think of, perhaps? I thought of one that I haven't seen anywhere, but see if you like it or not. But a couple reasons you haven't given yet. No?
Have a fridge.
What? Oh, it should be fresh every day, right? If you have them on, wherever they store it for a year, right? Unless you have a nace. Can't rely on miracles like they did in Beit HaMikdash, where they had the hot bread from week to week. You know, it stayed, Lechem HaPanim stayed hot every week to the next week. All right? We don't want to rely on these things.
Why should they schlep it all the time? Is that?
That's another reason, right? If they had, let's say, a year come down, right? A year's worth of man come down, they would have to schlep it with them when they moved. Right? You could say that Hashem would provide, before they moved, would provide just enough for them for that trip, for that staying, all right? But anyway, that's another thing that I saw. And one thing that I haven't seen is perhaps, because remember with Yishmael, that he wasn't punished right away. Machshemo could have killed Hitler, Machshemo earlier, wouldn't have had maybe all the shows that we had. But then some say, why didn't Hashem, allow Yishmael to die? And so on. But he judged him, what are the words that we say in the Korbanot every day?
As he was now.
Ba'asher hu sham, as he is there. Now the man fell, depending on how you were. If you were very religious, if you believed in Hashem a lot, a little, didn't believe so much. So it fell, that was how it fell. It fell next to your tent, further away from your tent, you'd have to schlep a little more. And so every day, of course, people change. They go up and down in their religious being, right? And so perhaps this is another reason why Hashem made it come every day, so people will do tshuva and want it to come closer, and so on and so forth. Okay. So we have EMUNAH in the parsha. In the parsha this week we have actually Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat. Baruch Hashem, this year we had what? A lot of rain. We just heard a report that in New York State some of the crops are going to fail because unfortunately they haven't had enough rain. Some of the crops, the prices will go up, and some fruits and so on. Maybe we should start shipping some to America, huh? But anyway, Baruch Hashem, we had a lot of rain. On Shmini Atzeret we asked for rain, and I guess we prayed this year a little bit better than previous years. And Hashem did provide a lot of rain. You know that in Egypt, we know the famous thing about the Nile. Every day, they don't have to worry about rain because they have the snows from the Africa. The Nile flows north. They get a lot of water. And so it's like you said before. They don't have to be so connected to Hashem to ask Him all the time for rain. We do. Hashem wants us to be so connected to Him. And so I heard a story in Russia that there was a grandfather and his son praying. This is over 20 years ago on Shmini Atzeret. They're praying for rain, and outside it was pouring and pouring. In Russia doesn't exactly follow the same calendar we do as far as rain goes, and it was pouring. So the grandson looked at the grandfather and he says to him, Zaidi, he says, "We're asking for rain, but look outside. Why are we praying so much for rain? It's been raining so much over here." He says, that's not our rain. We're praying for rain in our place, in Eretz Israel. And you see in Chutz La'aretz. So maybe in Chutz La'aretz also they prayed a little harder this year. Baruch Hashem, we have more rain. Another little anecdote about the connection to Hashem. There was a soldier, an Israeli soldier. After they serve, sometimes they go abroad. They save a little money from the army. And sometimes they work for a few months after the army. They save money and they go abroad. So there was a soldier who went with a group to South America. And they stayed there for a few months. And one of them, every week, used to write home and send pictures to his family. And the others didn't do that. And so the fathers in Israel knew that this one father was getting all the pictures and all the reports about their travels. And what did he do? He said, let's get together once a week in the home of this other father, and we'll, see what our children are doing there, based on what this one son is writing. So they asked the father finally, they said, why do you get these letters from your son, and how do you get so close, and we don't have it? And he said, very simple. He said, I told my son, you leave the money that you saved in the bank. I'm going to give you money for your trip. On one condition, that every week you write me what you're doing over there and where you are. And I'll send money to you as you need it there. Tell me what bank and where you're going to be and everything. So you see the connection over here. In other words, we are connected also to Hashem because we rely on Him every day. Modani Fanecha, every morning we say, there's no guarantee. One Rebbe used to go to sleep very late at night, and sometimes because of that he woke up late in the morning, and they asked him why. Rebbe, why do you go to sleep so late? He says, I have no guarantee I'll wake up tomorrow. I have to do everything I can today. So, you see, there are different ways to look at different things. Finally, there was one rabbi who promised to his people, and I heard him today say, that he promised somebody that this is going to be a year of sova, a year of plenty. It's going to be a year of rain. How did he know it? It's simple, because Hashem knows the calendar as we do. And he knew that 100 years ago was Taf Reish Ayin Bet, Tir Av, you will be hungry. And 100 years ago, this year was a very, very, year that didn't rain much. And they had a lot of trouble. So he said, if Hashem made that come true, He'll make this year come true too. What is this year? Taf Shin, or Taf Sin, Beit Ayin Bet, Tisba. You'll be satiated. So it was foretold. I wouldn't have said such a thing, but he felt confident enough that he told the people that this year Hashem should live up to His promise and make a lot of rain. So I'd like to say to this group also that you should be more fruitful, even if you can, almost impossible, all the things you're doing to increase, and Hashem should give you the brachot for the coming year. And B'schut Nashim Tzidkaniyot, as you know, that in the merit of the righteous women who came out of Mitzrayim, that first Geula happened, which we read about this week's parasha, Vayi B'Shalach, that we should indeed see the Yemot HaMashiach very quickly and keep on doing the good deeds that you have, and Hashem should bless you in all you do. Thank you very much. Shavua Tov. My boss tells me that sugar and non-sweet sweetener, or non-sugar sweetener have arrived.
Could I have your ears for a moment, please?
Excuse me, she's trying to introduce. I don't need a microphone.
Okay. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Rabbi Aaron Adler to all of you. Rabbi Adler is the rabbi of the Shul Ohel Nechama in Katamon. He's also the president of the Bnei Akiva Yeshiva in Chashmonaim. And I know for sure that you are going to enjoy hearing him, because he is going to be taking over, giving over a little bit of Reb Shlomo Carlebach Alav Shalom's pieces and words and so on. I met Reb Shlomo Alav Shalom more than once, and he was the most incredible man, and I'm sure that Rabbi Adler is going to do him justice.
Shing Shavua Tov, Shlomo Carlebach would never tolerate doing a solo. Shlomo Carlebach means everybody joins together. See if we can make this a little bit better. Okay. In the poem of Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachol, there's a stanza, Kraticha. Shlomo has a very, very beautiful, nice, slow niggin. As Shabbos leaves us, and going into the weekday, people have to consider to go back to work. And throughout the generations, this wasn't an easy proposition. Jews were living in poverty in many, many countries, as you well know. And they asked the Kadosh Baruch Hu every single Motzei Shabbat to give them a bracha, to save them from dalut, from being poor. us had the opportunity of not only seeing Shlomo in concert live, but I'm sure many of us will tell us that we knew him very well, and he was probably the closest person to him. Any person who ever met Shlomo Carlebach would walk away saying, I'm so clearly his best friend. There's no question about that, and he sees it as such as well. I saw Shlomo for the first time. I was a whole 7 years old in a concert in Washington Heights in New York City on a Motzei Shabbos, where it was scheduled for 8:30, and he showed up at about 10 o'clock, which was pretty par for the course, as we said. He was born to a Yekisha family, the Carlebachs. He was the most unconventional Yekka in the history of Yekkis. Time was just forget about it. It just didn't mean anything. The whole framework of, he wasn't part of that scene at all. And yet, he was a Talmid Chacham. He learned in the finest yeshivas in New York, in Torvadas. He got smicha from Rav Hutner and Chaim Berlin. He learned by Rabbi Kotler in Lakewood. He was close to two Lubavitcher Rebbes, the 6th and the 7th. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson and Menachem Mendel Schneerson, Zechronam Livracha. So he was very much part of the Torah world. And then he decided that he was sent by Kadosh Baruch Hu as a shliach to do something very unconventional. And while in the yeshiva world, he didn't really see eye to eye with his derech, but he felt that he had to answer to Kadosh Baruch Hu and not to Rosh Yeshivas. And he did a lot. I can tell you that I know people who, because of him, really turned their whole lives around. So we're not here to judge a person on a day-to-day. You take a look at the results, the nigunim, the thousands of nigunim that he left as a legacy, which to a large degree stemmed from the spirit of Moshetz and Chabad, two different branches of Chassidut. Shlomo, I was one of those who said I was his biggest fan, no doubt, and I saw him a year before he was nifta in the Ramada Hotel here in Yerushalayim. And I went over to him, I said, Shlomo, I want you to know that I'm your biggest fan. He says, I know. He gave me a big hug and a kiss. I said, no, I'm going to prove it to you. You see, at that concert in Beis Medrash HaGodel in Washington Heights in 1959, I'm going to tell you exactly what you sang. And I listed off the whole program. So he looked at me and says, boy, you must be my biggest fan. But it was very easy, because what he sang on that concert was every song from the first record. First record. And I believe that when you do Shlomo, you do them authentically. You don't add your own shtikim, and you don't jazz it up. You try to do it as Shlomo as possible. There's a great Rosh Yeshiva of one of the Hesed Yeshivas in Petach Tikva, Rav Yuval Sherlau, and he says that if you have a problem with the belief in Tchiyat HaMeitim, check out Shlomo Carlebach. I mean, Shlomo, I think, is great. Give me a break. No, he's greater than life today. He's much greater today than he ever was. Much greater. In terms of its popularity, there's hardly a shul without a Carlebach minyan here and there. The acceptance of Shlomo today is much more so than it ever was when he was alive. When I was in Melbourne, Australia, about a dozen years ago, I made a comment there that there were two individuals in the last generation who physically saw more Jews than anyone else in the world. One was Lubavitcher Rebbe, and one was Shlomo. The difference was that the world came to see the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Shlomo went out to the world. So there was a Lubavitcher Chassid there, and he was very peeved and insulted. He said, "What kind of business, you're putting the same in the same breath?" Because he didn't understand the point. But some years later, I saw a taped interview with Shlomo Carlebach, and he says, "You know, the Lubavitcher Rebbe lived in 770, I live on a Boeing 747. So there was something to that. There really was something to that. You know, when he passed away, so he was buried here in Yerushalayim in Har Menuchot, and thousands of people were there at the Levaya. He was brought to Kever through singing. And again, in an interview the year before, he said that there's something missing at Levayas. People don't sing. So you think sing, you think song, you think happiness, simcha. No. Music is one of the at least a dozen different art forms. Once upon a time, I was the president of the EMUNAH College in Baca back in the 1990s, and there I got to know a little bit about the graphic art and fine art department. We had a very wonderful head of the fine art department who gave me a one-line definition of art. He says art is an external expression of an internal drive, internal spiritual religious drive. He said it in Hebrew. He says bitui chitzoni ledachav pnimi nafshi ruchani. And this is what art is. The external expression can be drawing, can be sculpture, it can be poetry, it can be dance, it can be music, it can be different forms of art. But they're basically speaking a language of the neshama, the inside. It's not a articulated language. It's a different language. It's a deeper language. And no doubt, this was a language that any musician tries to get across a message. Shlomo, for sure, was using music to get across a very, very religious message to people. And it's interesting that many times, like I just did now in SAA night, he would move to just a niggin without the words. And he explained why he did that. He said he always wanted people to join, and not everybody in the crowd was particularly familiar with all the psukim, whether it's from the Siddur, from the Tanakh, from Tehillim, and so on. So he felt a niggin that's universal, you can get people into it. But then there was another reason, which he may or may not have heard at one of the shiurim that he would regularly attend, by the way, when he was in New York City, of our great Rabbi Rav Soloveitchik, Zichrono Livracha. The Rav once explained in a shir on Masechet Sukkah, in the last parak, and this had to do with Beit HaMikdash. So we had the Leviim who would sing the shir Shehaleviim Hayu Omrim Beit HaMikdash, right? Tomorrow, Hashem Haaretz V'Loat Evel V'Yosheva. And there's a Gemara Masechet Rosh Hashanah that explains that it wasn't an arbitrary selection of Pirkei Tehillim, but each parak reflected something unique about the creation on that day. So if you go through every single day's Hayom Yom Sheni b'Shabbat, Shlishi b'Shabbat, you're supposed to register that this is Yom Sheni or Yom Shlishi, Yom Revi of the creation, and try to figure out what the connection is. The obvious one is Shabbos, Mizvah Shel Yom Shabbat. That's the easy one already. And for Rosh Chodesh, Baruch Nafshi. But the Gemara presents a little bit of a dispute. We know that the Leviim, they did two things. They sang, so there was vocal, and there was orchestration. They had musical instruments there. And what do musical instruments provide? The nigun, nothing more. The musical instruments, a chalil can't spell out the words. Human being can spell out the words. So the question is, what was paramount? You have these two items. Was the most important thing here the text? And human beings, Leviim, are saying now the text that were authored by David HaMelech. But the music, schmaltzes it up a little bit. It makes it a little bit more fuller. Or perhaps the other way around. What's really important was the nigun, without words, the nigun. So why do you have words? The words, just Yotzes design to give us a little bit of something to say. But the real purpose of the Shir HaLeviim was the nigun. And the Gemara phrases it, Ikar Shira B'Kli or Ikar Shira B'Peh. If you say Ikar Shira B'Kli, what you're basically saying is that the nigun that comes out of the instruments is paramount. If you say Ikar Shira B'Peh, what you're saying is that the words are important. So the Rav said in a shir that you'd say, arguably correct, that it's the words. I mean, okay, nigun's nigun, but the words are important. How can we even begin to understand the other opinion? That the words are secondary, and what's principal here, what's primary, is the nigun. What's so important about a nigun? The idea is as follows. When we start saying, Shirot v'tishbachot HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're in big trouble. We're in very, very big trouble. Just to start, it's already an impossibility. Mi yamalel gvurot Hashem, yashmiya kol tehilato. Who is capable of articulating everything that has to be said about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So even if you say something, no matter how much you say, it's not going to come close to being a down payment of what you should be saying. So it's insulting. It becomes an insult instead of Shirot Tishbachot. So how do we get around it? The answer is we have a trick, a halachically approved trick. But I'll give you an example first, and then you'll understand the trick. Once upon a time, there was a newspaper called Hatzofeh, right? Hatzofeh Zal. Everybody read Hatzofeh, nobody bought it. Everybody read it by the neighbor. You got it at the Snif EMUNAH, you got it in Bnei Akiva, you got it at Bank Mizrahi. They always picked up Hatzofeh, right? Say that some people subscribed, Bekitza. So why did we read Hatzofeh? Did we read it for the news? Somebody said the editor of Mariv was a Novi. He always knew what they're going to print in Hatzofeh in the headline in 2 days. Because the news was usually a little stale. But you read Hatzofeh to know what's going on in unsere Welt, in our world. Right? You want to know who got engaged and this and that, all the what's going on. You bought Hatzofeh. So once somebody wanted to put an ad in Hatzofeh to wish some Rav a Mazel Tov on some occasion. But he was a little nervous because, today you have Harav HaGaon, Harav HaGaon HaTzadik, Harav HaTzadik HaChosid, Harav HaGaon HaTzadik HaChosid Mon, and it just goes on and on. So if you don't give the person the right titles that he thinks he deserves, it's just going to be insulting. It's going to be very, very insulting. So this fellow, very, very intelligently, cleverly, he put in the ad, L'chvod Harav HaGaon v'chulei v'chulei v'chulei, etc., etc., etc. By writing etc., 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 he's basically saying, you're a lot more than Harav HaGaon. We all know that. I just happen to argue that what you are, but by saying Harav HaGaon v'chulei v'chulei v'chulei, etc., 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 so I'm acknowledging that you're way beyond. As funny as this sounds, the Rabbi explained that that's how we elegantly get out of the situation of any time of chapter of Hallel or Shirot v'Tishbachot. For example, the Mishnah in Masechet Sukkah tells us that when we finish formal Hallel, we repeat the last psukim, right? Otcha ki anitani vatili lishua, Otcha ki anitani vatili lishua, until Hodel Hashem ki tov kalam chazdo, Hodel Hashem ki tov kalam chazdo. But Kadosh Baruch Hu's deaf, he's hard of hearing, you have to say it a second time around. The answer is he doesn't have to hear it the first time. We have to give it to Kadosh Baruch Hu, but when you say it twice, it's symbolic that it's etc., etc., etc. And that's what we're saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know that we're just giving a minuscule of a down payment, but etc., etc., etc. We say it again. In the morning when we have Psukei Zimra, so we have a bracha Baruch Shamar, and we're very optimistic. We're with Shirei David Avdecha, where we're equipped with the Sefer Tehillim, and we're going to do justice now. And you start saying the Pirkei Ashrei and the Halalukas, you get to the end, you look at the watch, and you have to go to work. You can't go on saying Psukei Zimra the whole day. So how do you get out of it? The second bracha, Yishtabach. We tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we acknowledge, Kela Hodaot Adona Niflot. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are the master of all of the expressions of Shevach in the world. You are Kela Hodaot Adon HaNiflot. Habocher B'Shirei Zimra. Pick for yourself whatever you think about yourself. I have to go to work. And that's a nice way of getting out of Psukei Zimra. And then we have Kaddish. Kaddish is 10 expressions of Shevach. It begins with Yitkadav Yitkadesh, and then continues with Yitbarech, Yishtabach, Yitpaer, Yitromem, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shmo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in simple Hebrew. Shmei de Kudsha B'richu, if you haven't figured it out, is Shmo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's it. 10 expressions of Shevach, and that's all you have to say about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? No. He's le'elam in kol brichata, b'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechamata, da'amirat bi'alma. He's way above, say in Hebrew, lemala mikol divrei shirot v'tishbachot, shene'emru ba'olam. He's way above. That's the v'chulei, 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 etc., 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 and that's how we elegantly get out of saying the Shevach, the minimum 10 expressions of Shevach in a Kaddish. So the Rav said, when the Levium would sing a parak of Tillim, fine, they'd say Yom Rishon David Mizmor, very nice, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu would say, Zeo, that's all you have to say. The nigun of the instrumentation was really the etc., etc., etc. It symbolized the fact that whatever we've said was a fraction, a minuscule of a fraction, what has to be said about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the nigun takes off. The nigun then allows the Jew to express the HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chule, 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 without words. So we don't even know what to say about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the nigun carries the day. And that's the opinion of Ikar Shira B'Kli, that the Kli Negina, the instrumentation of Beit HaMikdash, was paramount. And what the Levium said a parak, so they said a parak. When Shlomo said in an interview, what's missing at Levi as a song is because, again, the expression of the nefesh can be expressed with music at all occasions. And indeed, when he was brought to Kfura, they sang 3 songs. One was Gam ki elech begetz al mavet, lo ira ra ki ata imadi, from Tillim. And then they sang Umacha Hashem Elokim dim'a me'al kol panim. Kadosh Baruch Hu will one day wipe the tears away from us. Umacha Hashem Elokim dim'a me'al kol panim. And the most moving was once upon a time, I was a 12th grader in high school. That's ancient history, you know, with the dinosaurs. And I went to a yeshiva in Borough Park, the Torah Zemes Kamenetz Yeshiva, where I had a very nice Rebbe in 12th grade. his name was Rabbi Yerucham of Simcha Zissel Levovitz, the son of the famous Mashgiach from Mir, Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz. And Rabbi Simcha Zissel Levovitz, Zechron Lebracha, was a brother-in-law of Shlomo Carlebach. His wife, Shulamit, was a Carlebach, which meant that every time there was a family simcha in the family Levovitz house in Borough Park, so the Shlomo was invited. And this Rabbi was kind enough to have me invited to all the family simchas at the house with the guitar, so I can sit in the living room and serenade together with Shlomo. So, okay, a lot of people can claim that kind of phenomenon, an event, but they were really remarkable events because I ended up learning Nunagunim that were not yet public, and there was also opportunity to show off to Shlomo a little bit of how I can do Shlomo. And I would ask him to give me a grade, like, what do you think, do I do it? So there was one particular song, which is not an easy song, it's also on that first record. Many of us are familiar with Mim Kaimcha that they sing in shuls, but that's a late niggin. But who remembers the first Mim Kaimcha? First Mim Kaimcha, anybody? Nobody remembers the first Mim Kaimcha? This I did for Shlomo once.
Oy vesim lo olenu ki mechakim anachnu
Shlomo told me, not bad. Not bad. Okay, not bad. That reminds me once, when the Rabbi Soloveitchik, the Rav gave a shiur to Balabatim on Tuesday night in Midtown Manhattan. So about 300 people used to come to the shiur. So the Rav gave a shiur. Once in a while he would allow people to ask questions, but he was tired. He gave the shiur and he didn't want people to bother him. But there was one guest that came. It was a shtickle nudnik. He started calling out, and the Rav kept going, name. Finally he said something, and the Rav caught it in his ear, and he goes, good. So this guy stands up, he wants a standing ovation, you know. So the Rav looked at him and he says, wenn ich so gut, das meint es nicht schlecht. Don't get the wrong idea. You know, like, all right. Shlomo is not bad, okay. So at one of the meetings at the home of Rabbi Levovitz, I always wondered what came first, the nigun, and then he went to the sources to try to fit in an appropriate pasuk, or he had a pasuk or a tefillah, and around that he composes a nigun. It turns out it's a two-way street. There were many nigunim that went one way, and other nigunim went the other way. So I was particularly privy to the evolution of a nigun. He came with a nigun, basically, without words, and he works on this with his brother-in-law to try to suggest an appropriate pasuk or psukim that this nigun would really hit. And it was Rabbi Levovitz, the brother-in-law, who hit it on the head after a few tries of different psukim. But it took about 20 years. Well, I'm telling you a story now of Tafshin Chavtet, 1969. And it took 20 years for this nigun to become very, very popular, extremely popular. But at that time, I knew the potential of it. I saw right away the potential. And it's a nigun that's sung today at the Chupot and Chatunot. And I asked Shlomo for a bracha that I should have a zchut of singing it at my own children's wedding. And I got a big bracha from him. And Baruch Hashem, 5 out of 6 kids are married, and the 6th is getting married in 2 months, right before Pesach. And my daughter, who's getting married, said that she not only wants me to sing it under the chuppah, but maybe if I can put the guitar up there also. So we'll see. But I first heard it as a nigun, before we even got to the words. And this is the way Shlomo sang it. explain to Chatan V'Kala before the wedding, when I meet them, I said, well, why does the Chatan break the glass under the chuppah? So usually many of them are aware of it, Zecha l'Churban. I said, yeah, that's one reason. The other reason is it's his last opportunity in life to put his foot down. I say, buddy, that's not even a joke. I see somebody crying again. It actually translates very well in Hebrew too. It's Translates very well in Hebrew. Right. Okay. So everybody has their favorites from all the many Nagunim of Shlomo. But this week is Tu B'Shvat, and I see on the wall Eretz Chita U'Sorah, Gefen Teina V'Rimon, Eretz Shemen U'Dvash, the Shivat HaMinim. And the Shivat HaMinim, certainly in the Pasuk, reminds us of what Moshe Rabbeinu told Am Yisrael in Parshat Ekev. So Rabbi Yitzchak has reminded us that the man we already have in this week's Parsha, man starts falling in Parshat B'Shalach. But there's a sneak preview in Parshat B'Shalach that this business of the Midbar is not going to be a short sojourn, but it's going to be at the Man Achlu Arba'im Shana, Ad Bo'am L'Tzeir Etz Kenan, and so on, Eretz Noshavet. So there's a Parsha Ne'am, you got to deal with this. This is way before Parshat Shlach, way before the Meraglim. So you have here a Moshe Rabbeinu being told by Kadosh Baruch Hu to place this pasuk here, but in terms of Am Yisrael, they didn't know yet in Parshat B'Shalach that they're going to be 40 years in the Midbar. That wasn't the original plan at all. But ultimately, they ate man in the Midbar for 40 years. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of his life, which is related to Shvat as well, because, Beit Shammai believes that the Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan is Rosh Chodesh, not Tu B'Shvat, and on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, Sefer Dvarim takes off. Ba'ashtei Asa Chodesh, Be'echad LaChodesh. On this 11th month, the first day of Rosh Chodesh Shvat, is the day that Moshe Rabbeinu makes his long-winded 5.5-week speech before he passed away on Zayin Adar. And he talks about many of the reviews, many of the issues that Klal Yisrael went through in the 40 years. And he apologizes to them for the man. He apologizes. He says, Vaya'ancha, Vayarivecha. I'm sorry, but I know I tortured you and I starved you. Now, in this week's Parsha, we are told that the man wasn't a tremendous amount of food. Nobody walked away with a full belly from the month. It was the minimum ration, food ration, to sustain a human being for one day. So it wasn't, below. It wasn't, poverty. It wasn't that type of the starvation diet, but it was close to starvation diet. It was just the bare minimum. Nobody was going to gain an ounce in the Midbar. And that's all it was. And people walked around with a very hungry feeling. Vaya'ancha, vayarivecha. They were tortured almost, and they were hungry. They were really hungry. Thank you very much. We'll say bracha already. Why not? Baruch atah Adonai Olam Shakol Nireh Baruch. They were hungry. And he says that the reason why we did that, Kadosh Baruch Hu did this, Vaya'achilcha et haman asher lo yadata, leman hodiacha, ki lo al halechem levado yichya adam. To teach you a very important lesson, man does not live by bread alone. There was a great philosopher that once said, do you eat in order to live, or do you live in order to eat? So, listen, sometimes you go to the 5-star hotels, you get the feeling that you get up in the morning to eat. And why is it 5-star? Because there's 5 different meals during the day. I once got a shaila that somebody washed for breakfast, and they didn't have 72 minutes of Hesach Hadas between one meal and the next. So went to the bench at night. That's a wash in the morning, make a moitzi. And it was a continuum of eating until the midnight express, and then a bench. That's all. Next morning, the same thing. So do you eat in order to live, or do you live in order to eat? So obviously, lo ala lechem levado yichya adam. Ki al kol motza pi Hashem yichya adam. The Torah has a different idea. Obviously, you eat in order to live, to be healthy, to be strong, but you're living because of motza pi Hashem, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us to study, to believe, to live by. But I have good news, says Moshe Rabbeinu. You're going into a country, and unfortunately, he would not go, that will be blessed with Eretz Chita U'Se'ora, Gefen Te'ina V'Rimon, Eretz Shemen U'Dvash. 7 species, the grain and fruit and plenty. And you're going to eat. V'yachalta, But not just ve'achalta. Here's a new word in the lexicon, v'savata. My grandfather Shlomo was born in Galicia, in a town called Pilsno, not far from the city of Tarnov. Tarnov is already a big city. Pilsno was a shtetl, like many of the hundreds of shtetl. And my grandfather was one of 16 from one father and mother. And they didn't have much to eat, putting it mildly. And his younger brother, who was a great uncle of mine, asked him once as a kid, as a child, he says, "Vus meint zat?" The word v'savata is translated into Yiddish, zat. So they knew the word in the Chumash, they knew the taich, the translation in Yiddish, but he never understood what it meant. He never ever had a sensation of sova, of getting up from a meal and saying, v'savata. Didn't know what it was. And it's exactly what the Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar went through 40 years. And Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, v'achalta, and now it's going to be something new, v'savata. It's going to be plenty to eat. But don't you ever forget, uveirachta et Hashem Elokecha al haaretz. The bracha is not for food, it's for the land. Uveirachta et Hashem Elokecha al haaretz, concerning the land. Because the land is blessed by Kadosh Baruch Hu to give forth the fruit. And we're blessing Eretz Yisrael. Even Achenu B'nai Los Angeles and Borough Park and Golders Green, whether they understand it or not, when they're saying Birkat HaMazon, it's Baracha Eretz Yisrael. That's what it is. That's what it is. So you have to eat the Chutz La'aretz, of course you have to eat. But the Baracha, this is not a joke, this is Torah, this is serious. The Baracha is for Eretz Yisrael. This is what it's all about. So this week is Tu B'Shvat. So we talk about a lot of about Shivchei Eretz Yisrael, the love of Eretz Yisrael, the Simcha of Eretz Yisrael. So one of the beautiful tefillot for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, it's part of Shmoneh Esrei, Simcha la'artzecha, the great joy of the land. So you know there was a great author, Mark Twain, and he visited in 1869 Palestine, and he saw only desolation. He wrote in his book, there was nothing here. Desolation, nothing to write about even. And just a few years later, 20 years later, he was here in 1869. In 1889, already Rabbanim in Yerushalayim were writing She'ilot to the great Gaonim of Lita. How should we handle the Shemitah here in Eretz Yisrael? So why in 1869 did they not ask Shilos about Shemitah? Because nothing grew. There was nobody here to grow anything. The Jews who lived in Eretz Yisrael, who came with the Aliyah of the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon or the Chassidim from the Besh, who came here, they were living off the Chalukah. Nobody was farming, nobody was working. They were tzedakahs, and then there were people who parceled out the allocations, and that's how they lived. But when the whole Mifal HaTzioni got started, in the late 19th century, people started working the land, cultivating the land, and all of a sudden, it started blossoming and blooming and growing. So they had shilas about Trumot and Masrot and about Shemitah for the first time. So our Rabbi Soloveitchik once told me that we talked about religious Zionism, Tzionut Atid. He says, you know what Tzionut Atid is? We have all these mitzvahs that are in the deep freeze for 1800 years. We had nothing to do with them except, let's say, read the Torah and read the Rambam about it. But we never fulfilled them. So Tzionut Atid is the mission to thaw out the mitzvahs that are in the deep freeze. That's what we're doing. We're thawing out mitzvahs that 100 years ago were theoretical mitzvahs, and now they're halacha l'maisa. They become very practical halachot. Simcha l'artzechem. This is what Yechezkel HaNavi envisioned. That Batem Harei Yisrael, Anpechem titenu, Uferyechem tis'u la'ami Yisrael, ki kervu lavo. Ramban tells us that when the Torah speaks about the galut, that Eretz Yisrael will be shmama, desolation, it wasn't the way Mark Twain thought, in a very, very low-life way. Desolation, it's nothing, it's not worth anything. Ramban said this was the greatest bracha, that Eretz Yisrael promised Am Yisrael it will never have another nation succeed agriculturally on the land. That's why it's going to remain Shmama. But when Am Yisrael comes back home, it's going to start rejuvenating itself. And that's what the Navi Yechezkel says. V'atem harei Yisrael, if you're going to see the mountains all of a sudden give forth the grapes and the olives and other things that are happening, this is the obvious statement that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is coming closer and closer, and obviously it demands of us to become more closer to Him. Simcha la'artzecha, v'sason le'irecha, the rebuilding of Yerushalayim. Utzmichat keren leDavid avdecha, v'harichat ner leven Yishai mishichacha. Shlomo, sang this many, many, many years ago. It appears on the second record, on the Bochi Nafshi record. It's one of my all-time favorites. But like another Carlebach Niggeronim, you have to know where to say the oive. My wife says in my machzeh for Rosh Hashanah, it says oive in the right places. You have to know where to say oive. Shlomo so believed in the power of music that he felt it could become universal and go beyond the borders of Klal Yisrael. And it was a trip in 1988, before it was fashionable to visit Poland. He was there in Krakow, and he was at the Ramah Shul, and he actually was invited by some get-together of the Catholic Church. And he taught them in Niggin. He taught them in Niggin. We translated the words. We know the Niggin very well. Translated the words in English. And it caught on. So much so that several years later, when the previous Pope, John Paul II, visited the United States and had a very large get-together in a stadium in New Jersey, they actually played it. I mean, everybody was up and singing it with Itlavut. What was the song? You all know the song. That's how he sang it to the church. That's a sensational niggin, an absolutely sensational niggin.
What did you say in English?
So I said, the Lord said, I once had a student at Madreshet Moriah many years ago from England, and I quoted Rabbi Jacobowitz, who was then chief rabbi, and I said, Sir Jacobowitz, so she says, no, he's a Lord. I said, when I grew up, there was only one Lord. Lord.
Lord Jacobowitz.
Just a 3 weeks ago we read the Haftarah from Parshat Shmot, from Yeshayahu, Kav Zayin, Kav Chet. So Yeshayahu talks about Vaya bayam hahu yitaka b'shofar gadol uva'u avdim be'eretz Ashur v'nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim yishtachavu l'Hashem b'Har HaKodesh Yerushalayim. So a great vision, but what was the vision? The people of Ashur, Assyria. Where is Assyria today? Assyria today is the country of Iraq. So, I mean, Iraq's in turmoil, but how many Jews are there? I mean, the whole vision, promise, and prophecy of Kibbutz Goliot is going to come from Iraq. And Mitzrayim, I mean, I would dare say there are hardly any Jews today in Mitzrayim. So you want to say that they came out already? I mean, there was a Jewish community in Mitzrayim, no doubt about that. But in modern times now, to say the great Kibbutz Goliot is going to come from Ashur and Mitzrayim, what does it mean? Uva'u avdim be'eretz Ashur v'nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim. So although Chazal say Ein shnei nevi'im mitnab'im b'signon echad, 2 prophets never say prophecy in the same style, the 2 great Gedolim of the 20th century, the Lam Rebbe and the Rabbi of Soloveitchik, independently raised the identical question and somehow suggested the identical answer. And the question was, indeed, Ashur and Mitzrayim, who are they? And the response was, Ashur is not the country of Assyria, but Aleph Shin Reish, like in the word Ashrei, it means land of content, land of bounty. In Hebrew we say Artzot Rivacha. And in the lands of bounty today, land where Baruch Hashem there's prosperity, there is a problem that we unfortunately sometimes are losing Jews to assimilation, losing Jews to lack of Jewish education, losing Jews because there's low birth rate. That's the Ovdim with an Aleph, Ovdim be'eretz Ashur. But then there are other countries that are oppressed countries, Eretz Mitzukah, and Mitzrayim, as in the Pasuk, Min HaMeitzar Karati. It means oppression. And there are sometimes Jews who would love to come to Eretz Yisrael, but they're in trouble. They can't do it. And that's called Nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim. So basically, we're talking about not a handful of Jews in Assyria and Egypt, we're talking about multitudes of Jews in these various countries. And Yeshayahu said, there's going to be room in Har HaKodesh Yerushalayim, both for the
Nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim, u'bo be'eretz Ashur, Nidachim be'eretz Mitzrayim, Yishtachavu l'Hashem be'Har HaKodesh, Yishtachavu l'Hashem be'Har HaKodesh, Yishtachavu l'Hashem be'Har HaKodesh, Yishtachavu l'Hashem be'Har HaKodesh, Yerushalayim, 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 Adman, Yerushalayim, oh Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim,
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Adler. I would like just to mention, a few months ago, I had the great privilege to join in a group with Rabbi Adler in Poland. And I remember how beautifully he sang at the Quorum in Gur, in Modges, in Lublin. It was an unforgettable experience. Now, whoever's got raffle tickets, we've got 3 prizes. So the first one is a beautiful basket of food made up by Delia. Rabbi Adler, please. Yes, please. Please. Yes. Wait, I haven't got my glasses on. 39. 39. Go to cleaners. 5. The food. The second prize are 2 bottles of wine. 11. Oh, yeah, Judy. Minute. 11. But somebody else said she's going. Yeah, 11.
Oh, 11 is me.
Judy, we haven't got 2 11s. Well, I can't see it, so okay. 11? Oh, come on,
Close. Who's got 11?
We've got one more prize, which is a lunch at the Betiro for 2 people. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah, 50. I thought it was the only one. Thank you very much. Rabbi Iskevich, could you bench, please?
When you go tomorrow?
It's still yeah. All right, we're going to bench. Yes, my son.